All right, guys, welcome back to the 12th episode of Flippin' Friday. Today we have a very straightforward build. I paid just $560 for everything here, but that is including an obnoxiously overpriced RX 580, which we'll talk about in just a minute. But I'm only gonna get a little bit less than $100 profit on today's build. But if you don't buy an overpriced graphics card, you could easily double or get close to doubling that. So let's cue up the quick building montage and then we'll start building this thing. So the PC that we're building today is obviously very fine-tuned and meta, but you can't forget that you should operate that same exact way with your own body, and one thing that can help you do that is magnesium. This magnesium breakthrough product from Bio-Optimizers isn't just your standard magnesium supplement though. This one blends all 7 essential forms of magnesium into one, and it doesn't use any synthetic additives or preservatives, which is often why most other magnesium supplements just don't work. Magnesium is a great addition to your own supplements because it can help you reduce stress, fatigue, and get better sleep, and that's honestly the reason why I've been taking it for several years now. But now I'm a little upgraded. This is a serious way to upgrade your body because not only does it provide better sleep for maximum performance the next day, but it also can help reduce stress, like I said, boost your immune system, and even help your body maintain a normal heart rhythm, all of which are very important to stay in peak meta performance. Bio-Optimizers is hooking up my first 100 viewers that use the discount code ZACH10. That'll save you 10%, and that's linked down in the description, and big thanks to them for sponsoring today's video. So real quickly for the performance parts before we start building, for today the CPU that we're using is none other than the Ryzen 5 1400. I definitely want to talk a little bit more about this later on in the video, but I paid $77 for this. For the motherboard it's plugged into, we have the Gigabyte B450M DS3H Wi-Fi. You guys know I use this motherboard all the time. I only paid $50 for this off of Amazon Warehouse. It is a used motherboard, just so you guys know. And then for our graphics card, paid way too much money for it. This was an awful purchase. This is the XFX RX 580. I paid $200 for it. You can easily get it for much cheaper right now because the GPU shortage, at least here in the United States, is a little bit over. And then finally for our SSD, we have the Intel 660p 512GB NVMe drive. I bought these for $45 from B&H, so I naturally bought like 10 of them because it's that good of a deal. But those are the performance parts. Now we can start building this thing. So real quickly, the CPU we just installed is the Ryzen 5 1400, like I said, and I paid $77 for it off AliExpress, and that's only because I didn't find any really good first or second generation Ryzen deals over the last week or two. $77 for the CPU by itself is not a good deal, but you gotta remember, whenever you're using first or second gen Ryzen, that allows you to use a very cheap B450 motherboard, which is what we're doing today. So for the $50 motherboard and the $77 CPU, that brings our total to $127, which is really, really good for a CPU motherboard combo. But then on top of that, with the first generation Ryzen chips or any Ryzen chip, we also get the ability to use the stock Ryzen coolers, and then we can paint them, which you guys know I really like to do. So I painted this off camera just so I don't bore you guys for this video, an all white. This is going to look absolutely beautiful on top of our CPU. Let's keep building this thing. So next up, we're gonna install this SSD. And like I said earlier, this is the Intel 660p 512GB NVMe drive. And these were consistently on sale on B&H for $45, which is really, really good. They're no longer on sale, unfortunately, but there is something important that I wanna show you guys. If you're using a green PCB SSD like this one, or even an ugly blue one, if you get a good price on this, which is what we did, like that's great and all, but sometimes you're gonna also have to spend the money on a black heatsink like this. You can pick these up for like $5 to $8 or so, but nothing is going to kill the aesthetics more than if you install a green PCB SSD on here and then don't cover it up, because you can see how it looks right now. That looks super ugly just as it is, and we don't even need to install that. with aesthetics over everything, we definitely cannot make it look like this. So we're gonna install this heatsink as well. Definitely worth the extra $8. So the case that we have here is the Antec DP31, and for $58, this is actually some really good value for a micro ATX flipping case. But the one problem with it, or a little bit of a downside, if you will, is it does not come with any front fan action. So most PC flippers like myself, we're probably gonna have some extra black 120mm fans. You don't have to buy those. So I'm going to install 2 of them up at the front, and then we'll use the rear one that it came with as the exhaust. And those 3 fans are definitely good enough. So definitely keep that in mind if you are following this as a build guide template. You're gonna need at least 2 front fans here. Hopefully you don't have to buy them though. So one of the things with a micro ATX form factor is, you guys know I love using micro ATX for budget flips like this, but oftentimes budget motherboards like this don't have enough PWM connections for all of the fans. So we have the 2 fans up front, the 1 fan in the rear, and we definitely don't have anywhere close to that amount of PWM connections on the motherboard. So sometimes you have to throw in one of these 4-port PWM fan hubs. I always go with the Deepcool FH04 because they cost like $8 or so. Just definitely something to keep in mind if you are trying to go budget. This does add another $8 or so to the motherboard, but we're about to plug this in now. Now the last part here we have is the graphics card, and like I was mentioning in the beginning of the video, I paid way too much money for this XFX RX 580. I paid $200 for it, but during the GPU shortage, this was actually a pretty solid buy. But now that the GPU shortage is essentially over here in the United States, this is now definitely very overpriced. And the one thing that I just now noticed is this graphics card is barely going to fit. I think we will be okay. So if you are trying to follow this as a flipping template, you are going to be able to save a ton of money. Now, I paid $200 for this a while ago. Like I said, I'm now seeing, I just checked last night, if you get a really good deal, you can buy these for $100 now on places like Jawa and Mercari. But if you aren't trying to really snipe a good deal, they're going for about $130 to $150. So that would instantly boost your profit if you copy everything else up to around $150, close to $200. But definitely just make sure you aren't overpaying for graphics cards anymore, because we aren't in the GPU shortage anymore. Nope. We're officially in the GPU surplus. And now that the GPU is in, let's turn on this system. And the one thing that I noticed before filming was I was hoping with this Antec DP31 that we would be able to use an all white RGB, because that's the only RGB accents inside the entire build. But as you can see, This white light just does not look good. It's blue. It almost has a little bit of a purple to it. So, I mean, any color is going to match a system like this where all of the internals are white and black. And I think this system looks really, really good, especially for $560. And you could even get this for cheaper than that if you don't overpay for that graphics card, like I said. But yeah, feel free to go with whatever color you want to. Let's take a quick final look at the parts list, and then we'll run some benchmarks and then wrap up this video. All right, so here you can see the full parts list. And like I said, I have $560 invested into this build, but that's only because of the huge inventory of overpriced graphics cards that I'm currently trying to get rid of. If you try and flip a gaming PC like this, you can easily get this to less than $500 with a cheaper graphics card. But I do think that you'll still be able to sell this at the price that I think you can at $650. That'll be $150, maybe even a $200 profit, which is pretty solid for just a Ryzen 5 1400 and an RX 580 build. But per usual, I did have Sam whip up a very quick benchmarking run. We don't have any gaming footage or anything, but here are the numbers for those of you that are interested in that. Really happy with how this one turned out. Just like always, I will be selling this build over on my website, zachshectorf.com. I'll probably sell it for a little bit less than $650 just to hook one of you guys up. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this 12th episode of Flippin' Friday. I'll see you guys in the next one.